The world of Eridor was woven from starlight and ancient dreams, a tapestry of shimmering forests, rivers that sang lullabies, and mountains whose peaks kissed the constellations. In a hidden valley cradled by the gentle curve of the Jade Mountains, lay the village of Lumina. Here, cottages with roofs of woven moss and walls of smooth riverstone nestled together like sleeping lambs, their windows glowing with the soft, steady light of sunstones. But even in Lumina, where children learned to speak with the stream and elders whispered secrets to the wind, Elara was different. She heard the whispers, not the rustle of leaves or the murmur of distant voices, not the hoot of the twilight owl or the gentle plash of the moon-drip fountain in the village square. Elara heard the quietest, most secret hums of the world, the silent conversations between magic and matter. She heard the faint, silvery sigh of the dewdrop as it clung to a spider's silk, recounting its journey from the cloud. She heard the deep, rumbling contentment of the ancient oak at the edge of the village, pleased with the warmth of the earth around its roots. She heard the intricate, sparkling thoughts of the fireflies as they danced, each tiny flicker a burst of joyous, wordless song. Most people in Lumina, blessed with their own gentle magics, could sense the mood of the forest or feel the pulse of the river. But Elara heard them. Each whisper was distinct, a delicate thread in the grand symphony of Eridor, often too faint for anyone else to perceive. When she was small, she tried to explain. "Mama, the little stones by the path are telling me how much they like the sun." Or "Papa, the wind just told the apple tree a joke, and the tree is giggling." Her parents, kind and patient, would smile and nod, assuming it was the vivid imagination of a child, blessed by the spirits of the land. But her grandmother, Lyra, understood. Lyra, with eyes like polished amber and hair like spun moonlight, who knew the names of stars that had long since faded from the sky, would simply press a gnarled finger to her lips and wink. "Some ears are just tuned to different frequencies, little star petal," she'd say, her voice soft as velvet. "And some hearts are meant to carry those secret songs." Elara's favorite place was a small clearing behind her grandmother's cottage, a place where the forest began its slow, mysterious dance towards the Jade Mountains. Here, a single ancient willow wept shimmering, silver leaves into a mossy pool. The willow was a particularly garrulous speaker, sharing tales of seasons long past, of tiny creatures born and grown beneath its roots, and of the journeys of the clouds across its branches. Its whispers were like the gentle strumming of a harp, rich with history and quiet wisdom. One night, as the twin moons of Eridor, Lumina, the larger, pearlescent moon, and Solara, its smaller golden companion, cast long, shifting shadows across the valley, Elara lay in her bed, listening. The usual chorus of the night was there, the soft breathing of her parents in the next room, the contented hum of the enchanted hearthstone, the distant lullaby of the river. But beneath it all, a new whisper began to stir. It was unlike anything she had heard before. It wasn't from the earth, or the trees, or the water. It was higher, colder, yet incredibly bright. It felt like the echo of a forgotten chime, resonating from far, far away, yet clear enough to prickle the skin on her arms. It was a whisper of longing, of ancient memory, and of a profound, quiet sadness. It pulsed, a faint, rhythmic thrum, calling to something deep within her. It was a whisper that felt like starlight itself, trying to speak. Elara slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the cool, smooth floor. She padded to the window and gazed up at the night sky. The stars were jewels scattered across an indigo cloth, each one a tiny, distant world. But one star, higher than the rest, seemed to shimmer with an unusual intensity. It wasn't the brightest, nor the largest, but it felt awake. And it was from this star, she realized, that the new whisper emanated. Eewaken. It seemed to sigh, a sound like frozen dew evaporating in the first light of dawn. Kremember. Fear, a strange, beautiful fear, tightened its grip on her heart. She had never heard a star speak before. The celestial bodies were usually silent, distant observers, their light a quiet blessing. What could make a star whisper such a poignant plea? She found her grandmother sitting by the hearth, stoking the sleepy flames with a twig of dried moon blossom. Lyra didn't turn when Elara entered, but a faint smile touched her lips. "Couldn't sleep, little star petal?" "Grandmother," Elara breathed, her voice barely a whisper itself. Do stars, do they ever speak? Lyra's smile deepened. Ah. She turned, her ancient eyes twinkling in the firelight. Ah, so you heard it too. Elara's eyes widened. You heard it? But how? It's so high up, so far away. Lyra patted the space beside her on the hearth rug. Elara curled up, drawing her knees to her chest. Some whispers are not meant for the ears, Elara. They are felt in the heart, in the bones, in the deepest part of your being. And some whispers? Some are so powerful, so ancient, that they resonate through the very fabric of Eredor itself, and anyone attuned enough might catch their echo. What is it, grandmother? Elara asked, her voice hushed with awe. What is it saying? Lyra gazed into the flickering flames, her face etched with a wisdom that spanned centuries. That, little one, is the whisper of the sleeping star, or as some of the oldest tales call it, Arian's heart. Arian's heart? Elara repeated, the name tasting like ancient magic on her tongue. Long ago, Lyra began, her voice a low, melodic hum, when Eredor was young, and the first magic flowed freely. The sky weavers, who wove the constellations and painted the nebulae, placed a special star above our world. It was a star of pure, potent creation, a source of all life and light in our corner of the cosmos. They called it Arian's heart, for it pulsed with the very essence of our world. What happened to it? Over time, as the world grew, and the magic settled, and the sky weavers moved on to paint new skies, Arian's heart grew quiet. It didn't fade. No, it simply slumbered. Its light became a gentle glow, its pulse a faint thrum. It became known as the sleeping star, its energy flowing subtly into Eredor, sustaining life. Lyra paused, stirring the moon blossom again. Until now. Why is it whispering now? Elara asked, her heart beating a little faster. The new whisper from the sky seemed to intensify, a soft, insistent longing. Lyra's gaze grew distant. It is a whisper of unrest, Elara, a whisper of something stirring in the deep places of Eredor. The sleeping star senses it, just as you do. It senses a disharmony, a subtle fraying in the magic of our world. A disharmony? Elara had never known Eredor to be anything but harmonious. The streams flowed, the trees grew, the seasons turned with perfect grace. Even the most beautiful tapestry can develop a loose thread, Lyra explained. And if left unattended, that thread can unravel. The whisper of Arian's heart is a warning, a gentle plea for us to listen, to understand what is stirring. Elara felt a deep sense of purpose bloom within her. Her gift, which sometimes felt like a lonely secret, now felt like a vital key. What can we do, grandmother? How can we listen better? Lyra smiled, a knowing, gentle smile. Sometimes, little one, the answers are not found in grand gestures, but in quiet observation. The sleeping star is reaching out. It wants to be heard, and you, Elara, are its most direct channel. But I don't know what it wants me to do, Elara confessed, a pang of frustration mixing with her wonder. The whisper was clear, yet its meaning was still veiled. It wants you to listen, truly listen, beyond the words, Lyra said. The whispers from Arian's heart are not spoken in a language of sounds, but of feelings, of resonance. They are a call to attention, to seek out the source of the disharmony. And often, the first clues are found closest to home. The forest? Elara thought of the ancient willow, the chattering streams, the deep, resonant hum of the old forest. Perhaps, Lyra murmured, the forest is the lung of Eredor, breathing ancient magic into the world. If there is a fraying, it might begin there. But not just any part of the forest, the deepest, oldest parts, the places where the magic has slept for centuries, undisturbed. Elara remembered the faint, almost imperceptible whisper she had caught from the very heart of the whispering woods just last week. A whisper of deep, profound slumber, unlike the active, lively chatter of the outer trees. Now, she realized, that whisper had a new resonance, a subtle undertone of unease. The next morning the village of Lumana awoke, bathed in the soft golden light of Solara. Children's laughter drifted from the schoolhouse. The scent of fresh-baked sunbread wafted from the communal kitchen, and the market square was alive with the gentle bartering of fruits and hand-spun moonsilk. To anyone else, it was just another peaceful day. But to Elara, the lingering hum of the sleeping star, though fainter in daylight, was a constant reminder. She spent the morning tending to her small garden, speaking softly to the moon-petal blossoms and coaxing the dream vines to twine gracefully around their trellises. Each plant responded with a soft, appreciative sigh, their unique whispers a comforting chorus. But her thoughts kept returning to the deeper, more urgent whisper of Arian's heart. After a light lunch of berry tarts and stream water, Elara sought out her grandmother. "Grandmother, you spoke of the deepest parts of the forest. Where exactly do you mean?" Lyra, who was carefully grinding dried star moss into a fine powder for a healing salve, looked up. "The shadowed vale, little one, beyond the whispering woods, where the trees grow so tall their canopy almost touches the sky, and the light rarely reaches the forest floor. Few venture there, for the magic there is ancient and heavy, sometimes too potent for the uninitiated. Elara's heart gave a little leap. The shadowed vale was a place of legend, spoken of in hushed tones by the villagers. It was said to be home to sleeping giants of the plant kingdom, to creatures of pure starlight and shadow, and to forgotten magic. It was also said to be protected by an invisible barrier, a veil of ancient enchantments that only lifted for those who truly understood its purpose. But how would I get past the barrier? Elara asked. And what would I be looking for? Lyra tapped her chin thoughtfully. Nenwani. The barrier, if it still holds, will respond to a pure heart and an open mind. And as for what you're looking for, the whispers will tell you, Elara. But you must listen with more than your ears. Listen with your spirit. Arian's heart is calling to something specific, something that resonates with its own core. Elara knew she couldn't rush into the shadowed vale alone. Her grandmother, though supportive, was frail with age. But she also knew she couldn't ignore the celestial plea. The whisper of the sleeping star was growing more insistent, a soft yearning pulse that seemed to echo in her very bones. She decided to start with the closest edge of the whispering woods, the part she knew best. Perhaps the usual voices of the forest could offer a clue, a path to the deeper mystery. She packed a small pouch with dried fruits, a flask of cool stream water, and a tiny sunstone for light, just in case. She tied her long dark hair back with a ribbon of woven forest silk, and set off, her heart a mix of trepidation and excited determination. The Whispering Woods lived up to its name. As Elara stepped beneath the arching canopy of ancient everleaf trees, 1,000 soft sounds enveloped her. The rustle of unseen creatures in the undergrowth, the gentle sigh of the wind through the leaves, the drip-drip of dew from high branches. And beneath it all, the symphony of whispers, the contented purr of the moss beneath her feet, the polite greetings of the small berry bushes, the busy chatter of a colony of forest sprites flitting between iridescent mushrooms. Elara walked slowly, letting her senses guide her. She focused on the deeper currents, the underlying hum that connected everything. She let the whisper of Arian's heart, a constant, gentle thrum in her awareness, guide her path. It wasn't a direct pointing, but a feeling of warmer or colder, a subtle shift in resonance. She passed by the towering, ancient whisper oaks, their boughs heavy with centuries of stories. Their whispers were deep and resonant, like the slow turning of massive gears, full of ancient memories. She caught fragments, the old ways, fading, a shadow, stirring. But the words were fragmented, like echoes in a vast cavern. Deeper she went, the light growing dimmer, filtered through ever thicker layers of leaves. The sounds of the village faded, replaced by the wilder, more primal orchestra of the deep woods. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and unknown blossoms. The trees here were different. Their trunks were broader, their bark gnarled and covered in luminous moss. Their whispers were less like conversations and more like deep, slow breaths, the sounds of beings in profound slumber. The whisper from the sleeping star grew stronger here, not louder, but more defined, more urgent. It resonated with the sleeping trees, a call from one ancient slumber to another. It felt like a subtle tuning fork, striking a chord within the forest itself. Elara followed the feeling, pushing through thickets of shimmering fern and stepping over roots as thick as her waist. She noticed a change in the whispers of the plants around her. They were no longer simply sleeping or content. Now, there was a subtle undercurrent of disturbance, a faint tremor of unease, a ripple of something being gently nudged, perhaps against its will. She came to a small, hidden glade where the trees formed a tight, almost impenetrable circle. In the center of the glade stood a single magnificent tree. It was unlike any Elara had ever seen. Its bark was the color of twilight, shot through with veins of silver that pulsed with a faint internal light. Its leaves were a deep, iridescent indigo, and they didn't rustle in the breeze. Instead, they seemed to hum, a soft, low vibration that Elara felt in her chest. This tree was ancient, even by the standards of the Whispering Woods. It wasn't merely old, it felt primordial. And its whisper was the strongest she had heard from any living thing on Eridor, save for the celestial hum of Arian's heart itself. Its voice was a deep, mournful drone, a sound that spoke of vast age and profound loneliness. But beneath the sorrow, Elara heard something else. A faint, almost imperceptible, crack. A tiny fracture in the ancient tree's being, a slow, gentle weakening. "Ye breaking?" the tree whispered, its voice like the grinding of ancient stones. "Fading," the song. And then she saw it. Not on the tree itself, but beneath its massive, root-laden base. A faint shimmer, a distortion in the air, like heat rising from a summer road. It was almost invisible, but Elara's attuned senses picked it up. It was a ripple, a tear in the very fabric of the forest's magic. And from within this shimmer, she felt a subtle coldness, an absence of the usual vibrant life force of the woods. The whisper of Arian's heart pulsed with renewed urgency, directly resonating with this shimmering tear. It wasn't just a general disharmony, it was this subtle break, this quiet wound in the heart of the ancient forest. Elara knelt, her fingers hovering near the shimmering distortion. It felt cool to the touch, almost numb, a void where there should have been the vibrant warmth of forest magic. The grand tree above her sighed, a sound of deep, ancient pain. "They are stirring," the tree whispered, its voice barely audible. "Sleepers, they seek to mend, but the tear, it grows." Elara frowned. "Who are the sleepers?" she whispered back, hoping the tree could hear her. The tree offered no direct answer, only a deeper sigh. But the whisper from Arian's heart seemed to shift, growing softer yet more insistent, guiding her attention. It was no longer a general warning, but a specific directive, pointing towards the tear in the magic. She peered closer at the shimmering distortion. It was not a hole, not a physical opening, but a place where the magic of the forest seemed to be thinning, almost transparent. And through that transparency, she caught a glimpse of something else. Something dark, yet not evil. Something vast and unmoving, a colossal shape that seemed to be part of the earth itself. It was almost like looking through a thin veil into another, deeper layer of Eridor. And from that deeper layer, through the tear, she heard a new whisper. It was even fainter than the sleeping stars, but it was distinct. A deep, slow, rhythmic beat, like the pulse of a truly immense heart, buried deep beneath the earth. It was a sound of ancient, profound slumber, but a slumber that was now troubled. This was the source, she realized. This was what the sleeping star was trying to warn them about. A tearing in the veil, a stirring of something ancient and vast beneath Eridor, and a growing disharmony that threatened to unravel the very magic of their world. Elara knew she had found something profound. She had found a wound in the world, and a whisper from something truly ancient trying to speak through it. But what was it? And what could a little girl do about a tear in the fabric of magic itself? She looked up at the ancient, sighing tree, then back at the shimmering tear, and then, instinctively, up towards the distant, whispering sleeping star. The threads of connection were undeniable. The world was speaking to her, and she was finally beginning to understand. But this was only the beginning. The true nature of the disharmony, and the identity of the sleepers, remained a profound mystery, stretching out before her like the endless silent depths of the night sky. She looked up at the ancient, sighing tree, then back at the shimmering tear, and then, instinctively, up towards the distant, whispering, sleeping star. The threads of connection were undeniable. The world was speaking to her, and she was finally beginning to understand. But this was only the beginning. The true nature of the disharmony, and the identity of the sleepers, remained a profound mystery, stretching out before her like the endless silent depths of the night sky. A quiet current, like the unseen flow of a deep river, tugged at Elara. It wasn't a force that compelled, but rather an invitation, warm and irresistible. The shimmering tear, no larger than her hand, pulsed with a gentle light, seeming to breathe with a rhythm she could almost feel in her own chest. It beckoned. A doorway not to a place, but to an understanding. With a deep breath, her heart thrumming a soft drumbeat against her ribs, Elara reached out. Her fingers, usually steady from years of careful tending to her herb garden, trembled ever so slightly as they approached the tear. The air around it felt strangely alive, cool and yet vibrant, like touching pure starlight distilled into liquid form. The moment her fingertips brushed the shimmering surface, a sensation like 1,000 tiny bells, chiming through crystal, swept over her. It wasn't cold, nor hot, but a perfect, living warmth that seeped into her skin, then her bones, then her very spirit. The tear rippled, not like water, but like spun light, and then, with a soft, inaudible sigh, it expanded. It didn't grow outwards in the traditional sense, but inwards, drawing Elara's perception into its heart. The whispering tree, the surrounding glade, even her own body, seemed to dissolve, replaced by an engulfing ocean of pure, undiluted light. She wasn't moving, yet she felt as though she were falling through eternity, cradled by a gentle current of magic. Images began to form around her, not projected onto a screen, but woven directly into the fabric of her awareness. She saw a world, impossibly vibrant, pulsing with a deep, resonant hum. Colors she had never seen before blossomed and swirled, sapphire blues that sang, emerald greens that whispered ancient secrets, and golds that tasted of pure joy. Every leaf, every stone, every ripple of water in this vision thrummed with an inherent magic, a perfect, exquisite harmony. In the heart of this luminous world, she saw them. The sleepers. But here, they were not sleeping. They were vast, gentle beings, their forms indistinct, shifting like mist or shimmering aurora, yet radiating an undeniable presence. Their essence was woven into the very fabric of the world. Some resembled colossal trees, their branches touching the heavens. Others were like mountains, majestic and still, yet alive with an inner glow. Still, others were like flowing rivers of pure light, their currents nurturing everything they touched. Their collective song was the very hum she felt, a symphony of existence, keeping the cosmic balance. Above them, grand and brilliant, shone the sleeping star. But it was not sleeping then. It was a radiant heart in the sky, a sun, and a moon, and 1,000 stars all at once, pouring its living light into the beings below, sustaining their magnificent harmony. Its light was a gentle golden rain, falling ceaselessly, nourishing the world and its magnificent heart singers. For that was the name that resonated in Elara's mind, the heart singers of the world. Then, subtly at first, a shift, a whisper of dissonance, like a single forgotten note in a perfect melody. It wasn't a sudden crash, but a slow, almost imperceptible fading. The brilliant colors began to soften, the vibrant hum to quiet. The golden rain from the heart star grew a fraction less bright, its warmth a fraction less pervasive. Elara watched, a silent observer in this memory, as the magnificent heart singers began to change. Their luminous forms, once so fluid and alive, grew still. Their light receded, pulling inwards, as if they were drawing a veil over their own brilliance. They seemed to fold into themselves, becoming less like living beings and more like majestic ancient monuments, their contours solidifying, their inner glow dimming to a faint pulse. It was as if a great weariness had fallen upon them, a deep, sorrowful fatigue that pulled them into an unwilling slumber. The world, once so resplendent, grew veiled. The sapphire blues muted to indigo, the emeralds to deep forest greens, the golds to a pale, distant gleam. The vibrant hum softened into a pervasive, poignant silence, broken only by the gentle sigh of the wind, a sigh that now felt like a lament. The heart star, once the radiant heart of the sky, receded further, becoming the distant, whispering, sleeping star she knew, its light a memory of its former glory. The cause of this slumber was not an overt attack, no monstrous shadow or malevolent force. It was something far more insidious, a slow, creeping forgetfulness, a subtle unraveling of the threads of connection, a gradual dimming of wonder in the world, a quiet turning away from the inherent magic that sustained everything. The harmony had not been shattered, it had simply begun to fray, thread by invisible thread. And as the harmony faltered, the heart singers, unable to sustain their vibrant song without the world's full resonance, had fallen into a deep, protective sleep, their slumber a living echo of the disharmony itself. The vision began to recede, colors returning to their familiar shades, the pervasive hum fading. Elara felt a gentle pull, and then, as suddenly as it had begun, she was back in the glade, her fingers still touching the shimmering tear. The tear itself seemed to shimmer with less intensity now, its light a little softer, as if it had poured some of its truth into her. She gasped, a silent, profound understanding blooming in her heart. The sleepers were not merely slumbering, they were the source of the world's deepest magic, its very heartbeat. And their forced repose was the disharmony. The sleeping star was their celestial guide and life force, its dimness a mirror of their silent state. The heart singers, she whispered, the name feeling ancient and sacred on her tongue. They aren't just asleep, they aid a harmony, and they are waiting. As if in response to her newfound clarity, the ancient whispering tree stirred. A soft rustle went through its countless leaves, a sound like 1,000 tiny voices sighing in unison. A single luminous leaf, the color of moonlight on fresh dew, detached itself from a branch directly above her head and drifted down, spiraling slowly. It landed gently on her outstretched palm, its surface cool and smooth. Upon its delicate skin, intricate patterns shimmered into being, forming what looked like a flowing script, ancient and beautiful, that pulsed with a faint internal light. It wasn't words she could read, but a feeling, a resonance that translated directly into her mind, clear as a bell. Seek the weavers of dreams, for they remember the song of awakening, they hold the threads of what was, and what may yet be. The leaf pulsed once more, then the script faded, leaving only its pure, moonlit luminescence. Elara clutched it, her heart now alight with a purpose that transcended her quiet life among herbs and stars. The mystery was no longer an abstract concept, it had a name, a cause, and now, a direction. She stood for a long moment, letting the cool night air brush against her face, letting the enormity of her discovery settle. The world, once a place of quiet beauty, now felt vast and infinitely complex, filled with hidden depths and ancient sorrows. But also with hope. With the luminous leaf carefully tucked into a pocket of her simple tunic, Elara turned from the whispering tree. The glade, usually a haven of peace, now felt like a doorway to a much larger journey. She needed to return to her cottage, to consult her own small library, a collection of dusty tomes and fragile scrolls that she had gathered over the years, drawn to their forgotten lore without truly understanding why. Now she knew. The walk back through the moon-dappled forest felt different. The shadows seemed deeper, the silence more profound, the rustling of leaves a little more plaintive. Elara's senses, sharpened by the vision, picked up on subtle nuances she had once overlooked. The faint, persistent chill that had seeped into the world, the muted vibrancy of the forest floor, the way the night birds sang with a touch of melancholy, all were now understood as echoes of the disharmony, whispers of the heart singer's slumber. Her cottage, a cozy haven nestled among ancient oaks, welcomed her with its familiar scent of dried herbs and old paper. The hearth fire had dwindled to embers, casting dancing shadows that seemed to stretch and shrink with her every thought. She lit a small oil lamp, its gentle glow pushing back the deeper corners of the room, and moved to her shelves. Her fingers danced over the spines of books, a silent language between her and the knowledge they held. She remembered a particular volume, bound in worn, dark leather, its pages brittle with age. It was a collection of fragmented myths and obscure legends, dismissed by many as mere fairy tales. But Elara had always felt a strange pull towards it, a sense that it contained truths veiled in metaphor. She found it, tucked away between a guide to celestial navigation and a treatise on the language of flowers. Its title, embossed in faded gold, read, Whispers of the Unwoven, a compendium of lost tales and dream-spun lore. Carefully she opened it. The air around the book seemed to thicken, carrying the faint scent of old parchment and distant forests. She turned the fragile pages, her gaze scanning the intricate script, until a specific passage caught her eye, its words resonating with the clarity of the whispering tree's message. And when the great hum faded and the heart singers drew their inner veils, it was said that only the weavers of dreams, who tend the gossamer threads of nascent futures and forgotten pasts, might know the path to the song of awakening, for they alone perceive the patterns that bind all things, and remember the melodies that once wove the very fabric of existence. They dwell in the high places where the world touches the dream amidst the shimmering spires of the gossamer peaks. The gossamer peaks. Elara traced the words with a trembling finger. She had heard of them, of course. Legends spoke of mountains so high their peaks seemed woven from moonlight and cloud, iridescent and ever-shifting. They were said to be almost impossible to reach, guarded by swirling mists and winds that carried the echoes of forgotten songs. A place of dreams and whispers, just as the book described. Her heart leaped with a mixture of apprehension and fierce determination. This was no short stroll through the glade. This was a true journey into the wild heart of the world, following a path known only to myth. She spent the remainder of the night preparing. She packed a small satchel with dried fruits, nuts, and a flask of fresh spring water. She included a small polished stone, a gift from her grandmother, said to bring clear thoughts. The luminous leaf from the whispering tree she wrapped in soft cloth and placed carefully inside her tunic, close to her heart. Her sturdy walking boots, a warm cloak, and her most trusted lantern completed her provisions. As dawn began to paint the sky with soft hues of rose and lavender, Elara stepped out of her cottage. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. The sleeping star, a faint silver point in the fading darkness, seemed to twinkle a private farewell. Her path led her deeper into the whispering forest, away from the familiar tracks. The trees here were older, their branches gnarled and covered in hanging moss that swayed like ancient beards. The ground was softer, carpeted with thick layers of fallen leaves and ferns. The sunlight, when it managed to penetrate the dense canopy, fell in shifting patterns of gold, illuminating dancing motes of dust in the air. She walked for what felt like endless hours, following faint animal trails, guided by an inner compass that pulled her ever northwards, towards the rising sun and the distant, unseen peaks. The forest began to change. The trees grew taller, their bark smoother, their leaves a deeper, more profound green. Strange luminous fungi dotted the undergrowth, casting a soft internal light that pulsed with a gentle rhythm, like tiny, glowing hearts. At one point, she came across a river, wider and swifter than any she had encountered near her home. Its waters shimmered with an unnatural luminescence, reflecting the deep, starless blue of the sky. Instead of a bridge, a series of stepping stones, smooth and iridescent, stretched across the water, each one glowing with a faint inner light. As she stepped onto the first stone, it hummed softly beneath her weight, and the water around it swirled with faint ethereal patterns. Midway across, a small, sleek creature, like an otter but with fur that shimmered with the colors of a rainbow, surfaced beside a stone. Its eyes, bright and intelligent, regarded her with a curious gaze. It chittered softly, a sound like tiny bells, then dipped its head and disappeared beneath the glowing surface. Elara felt a quiet blessing in its presence, a reminder that the world, even in its disharmony, still held pockets of profound magic. The landscape grew more rugged as she continued. The forest gave way to rolling hills, then to craggy slopes. The air became thinner, cooler, carrying the distant scent of ice and ancient stone. Above her, the sky seemed to stretch endlessly, a canvas of ever-deepening blue, occasionally pierced by glimpses of impossibly tall, mist-shrouded spires. The gossamer peaks. As she drew closer, the mists that veiled the peaks began to take on an ethereal quality. They weren't just ordinary clouds, but swirling veils of spun light, iridescent and translucent, shifting with unseen currents. They seemed to hum with a faint, almost inaudible melody, a chorus of hushed whispers and distant dreams. The climb was arduous. The paths were steep and treacherous, winding through canyons carved by ancient winds. But Elara felt a growing exhilaration. Each step brought her closer to understanding, closer to the heart singers, closer to the song of awakening. She noticed how the rocks themselves seemed to shimmer with embedded crystals, and how the sparse, hardy mountain flowers glowed with an inner light, as if trying to hold onto the last vestiges of the world's harmony. Finally, after days of travel, she reached a high plateau. Before her, nestled within a natural amphitheater of towering crystalline spires, lay a sight that stole her breath. It wasn't a village or a fortress, but a series of delicate, shimmering structures woven from what appeared to be pure moonlight and spun starlight. They resembled colossal, intricate spiderwebs, but alive with a soft, pulsing luminescence, stretching between the peaks like bridges of pure dream stuff. This was the home of the Weavers of Dreams. As she approached, a figure emerged from one of the shimmering structures. It was an ancient being, tall and slender, draped in robes that seemed woven from twilight and spun mist. Their skin was the color of polished jade, their hair like strands of spun silver, and their eyes held galaxies. They were deep, fathomless pools of starlight and shadow, observing Elara with an ageless wisdom that seemed to penetrate her very soul. This was a weaver. The weaver did not speak with words at first, but with a presence that flowed into Elara's mind, a gentle current of welcome and ancient knowing. You carry the resonance of the whispering tree, the thought shimmered in her mind, clear as the mountain air. And the echo of the heart singer's sorrow. You have seen the truth. Elara, awestruck, bowed her head. I have, Ancient One, she said, her voice a hushed whisper in the vast silent peaks. I have seen the heart singers, and the fading of the heart star. The whispering tree sent me to seek the song of awakening. She reached into her tunic and carefully produced the luminous leaf, which pulsed with a soft light in her palm. The weaver's multifaceted gaze softened, a myriad of stars seeming to twinkle in their eyes. They reached out a hand, fingers long and delicate, tipped with nails like polished obsidian. They took the leaf, holding it gently, and a soft hum emanated from their being, a sound that seemed to resonate through the very crystalline peaks. The song of awakening is not a melody one merely sings, child of the waking world. The weaver's voice finally came, a gentle, resonant hum that seemed to echo from the very air around them. It is the restoration of the world's harmony, a restitching of the vibrant threads that bind all existence. The heart singers, whose very essence is the world's song, fell into slumber, not from malice, but from a profound imbalance, a slow unraveling of the threads of wonder and connection in your world. Their sleep protects their core, but it also starves the world of its deepest magic. The weaver gestured towards the shimmering webs that spanned the peaks. We, the Weavers of Dreams, tend to these threads. We see where they fray, where the light grows thin, where the harmony falters. The disharmony is a collective forgetting, a turning away from the inherent magic of life itself. The heart singers cannot awaken until those lost stitches are found and rewoven. Elara listened, her mind absorbing every word. Lost stitches? She asked, a flicker of hope rising within her. How can they be found? How can they be rewoven? The weaver smiled, a serene, ancient expression that seemed to encompass all time. The lost stitches are places where wonder has dimmed, where belief has faded, where the magic of everyday existence has been forgotten. They are not grand battlegrounds, but quiet places, overlooked by the clamor of the world. To find them, you must seek the places where the whisper of magic is weakest, where the silence is deepest, and where the echoes of forgotten stories pool. From within the folds of their twilight robes, the weaver produced a small object. It was a compass, not of brass or iron, but of a polished dark wood that seemed to absorb and reflect the starlight. Its needle was a shard of luminous crystal, perpetually pointing, not to a cardinal direction, but to a faint, inner glow. This is the compass of echoes, the weaver explained, handing it to Elara. Its wood felt warm and alive in her hand. It points to the heart of the nearest lost stitch. As you draw closer, the crystal needle will glow brighter, and you will feel the faint resonance of the forgotten harmony. To reweave the stitch, you must rekindle wonder, remind the world of its own magic, and help the forgotten stories be heard once more. The weaver's gaze, deep as the night sky, held hers. Your journey has just begun, Elara. The path will be long, and the task subtle, but your heart is true, and the world is waiting to remember. The first of these lost stitches, the one most easily found, often lies where forgotten stories pool, where the whispers of the past gather in the stillness. Seek the whispering springs, where the ancient lore flows like water, often the first to thin when the heart singers sleep. Elara clutched the compass of echoes, its crystal needle now glowing with a faint, steady light. A surge of quiet determination flowed through her. The task was immense, but it was clear. She knew what she had to do. "Thank you, Ancient One," she said, her voice filled with a profound gratitude. "I will find the lost Titches. I will help the world remember." The weaver simply nodded, their galaxy-filled eyes reflecting the distant dim light of the sleeping star. "Go now, child. The threads are waiting to be rewoven." With a final reverent bow, Elara turned from the shimmering spires of the gossamer peaks. The air, though still cool, felt lighter, imbued with a new sense of purpose. She looked out over the vast, expansive landscape, her gaze sweeping towards the horizon where the whispering springs might lie. The compass of echoes pulsed gently in her hand, a tiny beacon in the gathering twilight, guiding her towards the next step of her extraordinary journey. The sleeping star, a silent sentinel in the deepening blue, seemed to watch over her, no longer a symbol of distant mystery, but of a profound, hopeful promise yet to be fulfilled. She set off as the first stars pricked the indigo canvas above, each step feeling lighter than the last, her heart a steady drum of purpose. The compass of echoes, warm and humming in her palm, glowed with a soft inner light, its needle pointing unwaveringly towards the northeast, towards the fabled whispering springs. Her journey began across the gently rolling plains, where the grass shimmered with moon dew and fireflies danced in silent, swirling ballads. The air was cool and sweet, carrying the scent of night-blooming jessamine and distant pine. The landscape unfolded before her like the pages of an enchanted book. She passed through groves of ancient, silver-barked trees, whose leaves whispered secrets only the wind could understand, and skirted around slumbering hills that resembled giants curled up for an age-old nap. The compass was her silent companion, its soft pulse a comforting rhythm. It didn't just point. It hummed with a subtle resonance, guiding her not just geographically but almost intuitively, around pitfalls and through paths hidden to the ordinary eye. One night, the needle pulsed fiercely, urging her to turn aside from a seemingly clear path. Trusting it, she veered into a thicket of glowing fungi, and emerged on the other side to find the original path had ended abruptly at a deep, unseen ravine, now swallowed by shadow. The compass had sensed the unseen danger. Days bled into nights, and nights into days. She learned to read the patterns of the stars, to find sustenance in the forest's bounty, and to listen to the quiet language of the natural world. She met creatures of gentle magic, luminous moths with wings like stained glass, who led her through moonlit glades. A wise old owl with eyes like polished amber, who hooted guidance from the boughs of an ancient oak, and a family of playful river sprites, who showed her the safest crossings over bubbling streams. Each encounter was brief, yet left her with a feeling of connection, a subtle strengthening of her spirit. She felt less alone, more a part of the vast living tapestry of the world. As she traveled further, the landscape began to change. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of damp earth and moss. The ground became softer, the trees denser, their branches draped with emerald lichens. The compass began to glow with a steadier, more vibrant light, and a faint, almost imperceptible murmuring began to reach her ears, carried on the breeze. It was the sound of countless voices, overlapping, intertwining, like a chorus of distant, forgotten songs. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of walking under the watchful gaze of the sleeping star, she arrived. The whispering springs lay nestled in a deep, verdant hollow, a hidden jewel among ancient moss-covered boulders. It was a place of breathtaking, ethereal beauty. The springs were not a single pool, but a network of interconnected pools and streams, each one glowing with a different, soft light: aquamarine, emerald, amethyst, and pearl. The water itself seemed alive, flowing over smooth, iridescent stones that hummed with a quiet energy. Mist, luminous and cool, rose from the surface, swirling gently, catching the light of the moon and transforming it into shimmering rainbows. And the whispers, they were everywhere. Not loud or intrusive, but a constant, soft symphony of voices, rising and falling like the tide. She approached the edge of the largest pool, its surface like polished obsidian, reflecting the entire starry sky. The compass of echoes vibrated intensely in her hand, its light merging with the glow of the water. As she dipped her fingers into the cool silken liquid, the whispers intensified, swirling around her. No longer a general hum, but distinct, though fleeting, words. They were echoes of time, fragments of ancient lore, whispers of forgotten dreams. She closed her eyes, letting the sounds wash over her, trying to discern meaning amidst the tide of voices. The heart, the light, slumbering deep. Where shadows cling, the song of stars. It was like trying to catch water in her hands. Then a single voice, clearer and deeper than the rest, seemed to rise above the others, resonating directly in her mind. It was ancient, gentle, yet filled with profound knowing. "Welcome, child of the waking dream," the voice whispered. "You seek the sleeping star, the heart light of our world, whose slumber dims the hues of hope and stills the song of creation." She opened her eyes, startled, but saw no one. The voice was within the very water, within the air. "The star is not merely a distant beacon," the voice continued, soft as a sigh. "It is the living spirit of Lumina, the source of all vibrant magic, all waking dreams, all true colors in the world. Its slumber was not chosen, but cast upon it by the veil of oblivion, woven from forgotten fears and unfulfilled promises, slowly stealing its light." A profound sadness touched her heart. Though the world's quiet fading was not just natural, but a consequence of something more insidious. "To awaken Lumina," the voice went on, "you must first rekindle its history, its purpose. The Whispering Springs holds only echoes. The true chronicle, the song of its making, lies buried beneath the waves, in the sunken city of Lumina, where the guardians of memory keep vigil. Seek the deepest point of the celestial sea, where the stars' first tears fell." The voice faded, leaving only the gentle, indiscriminate murmuring of the springs. She stood for a long moment, processing the revelation. The sleeping star was Lumina, a living spirit, and its slumber was a magical affliction. To awaken it, she needed to understand its past, its song of making. And that understanding lay in a sunken city. The celestial sea. She had heard of it in hushed tales, a vast, shimmering ocean said to contain islands that floated like dreams, and depths that held secrets older than time. The compass of echoes, as if understanding, now glowed with a new intensity, its needle swiveling, then settling, pointing southwest, towards the celestial sea. A new direction, a new challenge. The thought of a sunken city, a realm beneath the waves, filled her with a thrilling mixture of awe and trepidation. With a deep breath, she thanked the Whispering Springs, feeling a quiet gratitude for the guidance. The promise of the sleeping star, of Lumina, felt more real now, more urgent. The world needed its vibrant magic, its true colors, its song. And she, a simple seeker with a magical compass, was somehow meant to be its awakening. She left the luminous hollow of the springs, the whispers fading behind her like a lingering dream. The path ahead was unknown, but her resolve was stronger than ever. The sleeping star, Lumina, now felt less like a distant light, and more like a gentle, slumbering heart awaiting her touch. And the journey to the celestial sea was unlike any she had undertaken before. The landscape gradually sloped downwards, leading her from the verdant, moss-laden lands towards drear, more open plains, and then into regions touched by salt and wind. The air grew crisp, carrying the tang of distant brine. The compass of echoes hummed with a different frequency now, a deep, resonant thrum that spoke of ancient currents and hidden depths. She traversed vast, shimmering salt flats where the ground sparkled like fallen stars, and navigated through canyons carved by forgotten rivers, their walls painted with stripes of ochre, russet, and gold. The challenges were different too. Instead of hidden ravines, she encountered mirages that danced on the horizon, tempting her with visions of oses that weren't there. The compass, however, remained true, its light a steady beacon against the deceptive illusions. One sweltering afternoon, as she walked across a plateau of sun-baked rock, a sudden, fierce sandstorm rose from the west, a swirling wall of grit and wind. The sky turned an angry orange, and the air grew thick and choking. She wrapped her cloak around her face, trying to push through, but the force of the wind threatened to sweep her off her feet. Just as despair began to creep in, the compass of echoes pulsed wildly, then projected a shimmering, translucent shield of light around her, deflecting the harshest blasts of sand. It was a faint, temporary protection, but enough for her to find shelter in a small, wind-scoured cave. She realized then that the compass was more than just a guide. It was a companion, sensing her needs, offering its own subtle magic when she was most vulnerable. After days of travel, the land finally gave way to a sight that stole her breath: the celestial sea. It wasn't merely an ocean. It was a boundless expanse of water that shimmered with every color imaginable, reflecting the sky and the clouds and the distant stars in an ever-changing kaleidoscopic dance. The water itself seemed to glow from within, a liquid tapestry of sapphire, emerald, gold, and silver. Islands, some small as pebbles, others vast as continents, floated serenely on its surface, some veiled in mist, others crowned with glowing crystalline trees. The air here was filled with a gentle melodic chime, like countless wind bells playing a silent song. The compass pulsed with exhilaration, its needle dipping and swirling, then settling to point directly towards the shimmering horizon, towards the deepest part of the sea. But how to cross? The shore was a beach of iridescent pebbles that hummed softly underfoot. She saw no boats, no paths, only the vast, inviting expanse of the celestial sea. As she pondered, a ripple spread across the water near the shore, and a creature of breathtaking beauty emerged. It was a celestial ray, a magnificent being with wings like shimmering sails, larger than any manta ray she had ever imagined, but made of pure starlight and liquid silver. Its eyes, deep pools of indigo, held ancient wisdom and gentle kindness. It glided effortlessly to the shore, its body casting shimmering patterns on the iridescent pebbles. A low, melodic sound, like the deep hum of a celestial chord, emanated from it, seeming to invite her. Hesitantly she approached, her hand instinctively reaching for the compass. The ray dipped its head, and a smooth, luminous platform, like polished mother of pearl, extended from its back. It was clear this magnificent creature was meant to be her transport. With a surge of courage, she stepped onto the ray's back. Its surface was surprisingly warm and soft, like finely spun silk. As she settled, the ray turned and gracefully glided into the water, its luminous form cutting a gentle path through the shimmering sea. The journey across the celestial sea was a dream made real. Beneath them, the water teemed with life. Schools of bioluminescent fish that painted swirling patterns of light, enormous, gentle whales whose songs vibrated through the water, and forests of swaying, rainbow-hued coral. The floating islands drifted by like silent ships, some adorned with waterfalls that seemed to pour starlight, others with ancient, glowing ruins. The celestial ray seemed to know its destination without guidance. It dove deeper and deeper, passing through layers of increasingly vibrant colors, until the surface was a distant, shimmering memory. The pressure of the water was immense, yet she felt no discomfort, protected by a gentle, invisible aura that emanated from the ray and her compass. Finally, far below, a faint light began to appear, growing steadily brighter. It was the sunken city of Lumina. It was a sight of unparalleled wonder. The city was not built of stone, but of colossal, shimmering crystals that glowed with an internal, gentle light. Towers spiraled upwards, adorned with intricate carvings that depicted celestial maps and mythical creatures. Domes of pure living light covered vast plazas where luminous flora swayed gently in the currents. The entire city hummed with a profound ancient energy, a silent song of forgotten beauty. The celestial ray brought her gently to a grand arched entrance, where the current was calm. As she disembarked, her feet touched a pavement of smooth, iridescent crystal. The air within the city strangely felt breathable, as if an invisible bubble of life sustained it. The city was not deserted. Gentle, luminous beings, tall and slender with skin that shimmered like mother of pearl and eyes that held the quiet wisdom of the deep, moved gracefully through the crystalline streets. These were the Luminakin, the guardians of memory, whose existence was intertwined with the sleeping star itself. One of them, taller and older than the rest, with a crown of luminous coral woven into their hair, approached her. Their voice, when they spoke, was like the gentle chime of underwater bells. "Welcome, child of the surface, bearer of the compass of echoes. We have awaited your coming. The sleeping star stirs in its slumber, and its light calls to those who would awaken it. I have come from the whispering springs, she replied, her voice echoing softly in the crystalline air. "I seek the chronicle of Lumina, the star's song of making, that I might understand how to awaken it." The Luminakin elder gestured with a graceful hand. "Follow us. The heart chamber of whispers holds the records you seek." She followed the elder through the luminous streets, marveling at the artistry and ancient beauty of the city. Murals on the crystal walls depicted the creation of the world, the birth of the stars, and the initial radiant glory of Lumina, the sleeping star, as a vibrant, conscious entity. It was depicted not as a distant orb, but as a vast, benevolent heart, its light nourishing all life and magic. They arrived at the heart chamber, a colossal dome of opalescent crystal, pulsing with a soft, warm light. Inside, rows upon rows of crystalline tablets glowed, each one inscribed with intricate symbols and flowing narratives. In the center stood a pedestal, and upon it, a single magnificent crystal, larger than her head, hummed with a profound energy. "This is the Starheart crystal," the elder explained. "It contains the complete chronicle of Lumina, from its first spark of consciousness to its descent into slumber, and the prophecy of its awakening." As she placed her hand on the Starheart crystal, the compass of echoes flared with brilliant light, and a torrent of images, sounds, and emotions flowed into her mind. It was not just words, but a living history. She saw the birth of Lumina, a celestial spirit born from the cosmic dance of creation, tasked with imbuing the world with wonder, magic, and dreams. She saw Lumina's joy as it painted the first rainbows, taught the rivers to sing, and ignited the spark of imagination in all living things. The world bloomed under its light, a tapestry of vibrant colors and boundless possibilities. Then, she witnessed the gradual encroaching of the veil of oblivion. Not a malicious force, but a byproduct of humanity's growing forgetfulness, their turning away from wonder, and their succumbing to doubt and fear. Each forgotten dream, each dismissed spark of magic, each act of cynicism, added a thread to the veil, slowly dimming Lumina's light, binding its radiant heart. The veil was not evil, but simply the accumulation of what was lost, slowly smothering the source of what it denied. Lumina, in its profound love for the world, did not fight, but slowly, painfully, retreated into slumber, hoping that one day, the world would remember its own essence and call it back. The prophecy spoke of a child of waking dreams, one who would remember the forgotten song, gather the scattered sparks of magic, and, with a heart full of hope, sing Lumina awake. The compass of echoes, she understood now, was not merely a guide, but a key, attuned to the very echoes of Lumina's memory. The flood of information receded, leaving her with a deep understanding and a profound sense of responsibility. Lumina wasn't just a star, it was the world's dreaming heart, and its awakening depended on belief, on remembering the magic that was always there. "The Starheart crystal has revealed its truths," the elder said gently. "Now you know. To awaken Lumina, you must gather the scattered motes of forgotten wonder. You must journey to the celestial nexus, the highest point of pure magic, where the world touches the heavens. There, at the peak of the shimmering peaks, where starlight falls like snow, you must perform the song of remembrance, weaving together the echoes you have gathered, and letting a compass guide the final spark." The compass of echoes pulsed, its needle now pointing upwards, towards the shimmering ceiling of the heart chamber, and beyond, towards the lofty heights of the shimmering peaks. The final destination. With a heart full of newfound knowledge and a spirit burning with purpose, she thanked the Luminakin, promising to carry their wisdom forward. The celestial ray awaited her, ready to take her back to the surface, to the next stage of her extraordinary journey. The sleeping star, Lumina, was no longer a mystery, but a friend awaiting her embrace. "Winen now, almiti saunen." The journey from the sunken city of Lumina to the shimmering peaks was a climb not just in altitude, but in understanding. The celestial ray carried her back to the surface of the shimmering sea, delivering her to an ethereal coastline where the land began its gradual ascent. The air grew crisper, the sunlight clearer, and the sky seemed an even deeper, more vibrant blue. The shimmering peaks were a range of mountains unlike any other. Their slopes were not of ordinary rock, but of colossal, crystalline formations that caught the light and refracted it into dazzling displays of color. Some peaks glowed with a soft internal luminescence, others sparkled with countless embedded gems, and still others seemed to be carved from solidified starlight itself. Waterfalls of pure liquid light cascaded down their faces, creating iridescent rivers that flowed into the valleys below. The compass of echoes now thrummed with a steady, powerful rhythm, its light a brilliant beacon that cut through the ethereal mists that often clung to the higher slopes. It pointed relentlessly upwards, towards the tallest, most majestic peak, which seemed to pierce the very heavens. This was the celestial nexus, the place where the world's magic was said to be most potent, where the boundary between mortal and celestial realms blurred. The ascent was arduous, yet filled with wonders. She scaled cliffs of amethyst and quartz, found footholds in formations of glowing moonstone, and traversed narrow ridges where the wind sang ancient lullabies. The air grew thinner, but she felt invigorated, her senses sharpened by the pure, magic-infused atmosphere. She encountered unique creatures of the peaks, agile, winged snow leopards with fur like spun moonlight, who watched her with curious, knowing eyes, crystalline birds that sang songs of exquisite beauty, their notes echoing through the valleys, and silent, wise mountain golems, made of living rock and moss, who occasionally shifted to reveal a hidden path or stabilize a crumbling ledge, as if guided by an unseen will. Each encounter was a quiet affirmation that the world itself was helping her, that luminous gentle call was reaching all corners of creation. As she climbed higher, the ground beneath her feet began to sparkle. The starlight that falls like snow was not metaphorical. It was real. Tiny glowing motes of light, like living dust, drifted from the sky, settling on the crystalline surfaces, making the entire mountain range shimmer and gleam. These were the scattered sparks of forgotten wonder, the very essence of Lumina's fading light, now drawn to the celestial nexus. The compass pulsed more strongly with each step, seemingly absorbing these motes, its light growing richer, deeper. She understood now. Her role was not just to carry a message, but to gather and focus the world's latent magic, to rekindle its connection to Lumina. Finally, after days of relentless climbing, she reached the summit of the celestial nexus. It was a vast, circular plateau of pure, polished crystal, so clear that it felt as though she stood on the very edge of the sky. The air hummed with an indescribable energy, and the silence was profound, broken only by the gentle whisper of the starlight snow falling around her. Above her, the sleeping star, Lumina, hung in the deep blue. From this height, it no longer looked like a distant point of light, but a colossal, ethereal jewel, shimmering with faint, muted colors, surrounded by a faint, ghostly shroud, the veil of oblivion. It was heartbreakingly beautiful, and undeniably asleep. In the center of the crystalline plateau stood a natural spire, tall and slender, reaching towards the sleeping star like an outstretched finger. It glowed with a soft internal light, and upon its tip, a small circular indentation, perfectly sized for the compass of echoes. She approached the spire, her heart pounding with a mixture of awe and anticipation. This was it. The final act. She thought of the whispers of the springs, the chronicles of Lumina from the sunken city, the gentle guidance of the compass, the unspoken aid of the creatures she had met. All of it had led her here. With trembling hands, she lifted the compass of echoes. It was now glowing with an almost blinding brilliance, its entire form suffused with the collected motes of wonder, echoing with the memories of Lumina's vibrant past. As she gently placed it into the indentation on the spire, it fit perfectly, as if crafted for this very moment. The instant the compass connected, the spire itself flared with light, sending tendrils of pure energy upwards, towards the sleeping star. The crystalline plateau beneath her feet began to hum, vibrating with a deep, resonant chord that resonated through her very bones. Now came the song of remembrance. She remembered the elder Luminakin's words, "Weave together the echoes you have gathered." But what was the song? There were no words, no sheet music. Then she understood. The song was not something to be sung with her voice, but with her heart, with her belief, with every spark of wonder and hope she had collected on her journey. She closed her eyes, focusing her entire being. She remembered the fireflies dancing on the plains, the silver-barked trees whispering secrets, the luminous moths guiding her way, the wise owl's knowing gaze. She remembered the iridescent pebbles of the celestial sea, the graceful flight of the celestial ray, the glowing cities of the Luminakin, the ancient wisdom of the star-heart crystal. She recalled the shimmering peaks, the crystalline birds, the gentle mountain golems. She remembered the unwavering hum of the compass, her silent companion, her guide. She poured every memory, every feeling of awe, every rekindled spark of belief, every whispered hope into the compass, into the spire, into the very air around her. It was a silent symphony of pure, unadulterated wonder, a song of the world, remembering its own magic. As her silent song intensified, the starlight snow began to fall faster, swirling around her in a dazzling vortex of light. The tendrils of energy from the spire grew thicker, brighter, reaching higher and higher, until they met the edge of the veil of oblivion surrounding Lumina. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The veil remained, a stubborn shroud. A flicker of doubt, cold and sharp, threatened to pierce her resolve. What if it wasn't enough? What if the world had forgotten too much? But then, she remembered Lumina's love, its patient slumber, its gentle hope. She remembered her own journey, the challenges overcome, the wonders discovered. This was not just her hope, but the hope of everything that yearned for the return of color and song. She pushed harder, pouring her very essence into the song of remembrance. And then, a tremor. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer rippled through the veil. Then another, stronger. The tendrils of light from the spire pulsed, pushing against the shroud. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, the veil of oblivion began to recede. It didn't tear or shatter but simply dissolved, like mist burning off in the morning sun, revealing the true, magnificent glory of Lumina, the sleeping star. As the last vestiges of the veil vanished, Lumina flared. A wave of pure, vibrant light, a cascade of all the colors of the universe, burst forth from the star, washing over the celestial nexus, over the shimmering peaks, over the entire world. The crystalline plateau beneath her feet exploded with light, sending dazzling rainbows across the sky. The waterfalls on the peaks intensified, flowing with rivers of pure starlight. The starlight snow transformed into living, shimmering butterflies that fluttered around her, their wings made of pure luminescence. And then, she heard it. A sound that was not a sound, but a feeling, a resonance that vibrated through every atom of her being. It was Lumina's song, the song of creation, of joy, of vibrant magic. It was the sound of the world waking up, remembering its own true colors. The sky above them, no longer a deep blue, erupted in a breathtaking aurora of swirling hues, emeralds, rubies, sapphires, golds, purples, dancing and shifting in an endless glorious display. The stars, once distant pinpricks, now blazed with renewed intensity, their light falling like benevolent blessings upon the world. She stood amidst the dazzling cascade of light, tears streaming down her face, tears of profound joy and relief. Lumina was awake. The sleeping star was no longer sleeping. It was alive, vibrant, and singing its song to the world once more. The light from Lumina flowed through her, through the compass, through the spire, and into the very heart of the world. She felt a profound connection to everything, a sense of belonging that transcended words. She was not just a girl, she was a conduit, a whisperer of dreams, a keeper of wonder. Slowly, gently, the intensity of the light softened, settling into a magnificent, pervasive glow that imbued everything with a newfound vibrancy. The world below, visible from the celestial nexus, seemed to brighten, its colors deepening, its shadows softened by the pervasive magic. She carefully removed the compass of echoes from the spire. It no longer glowed with a blinding light, but with a gentle, steady pulse, its purpose fulfilled, its echoes now clear and resonant. It was no longer a guide to a distant quest, but a symbol of the world's reawakened magic and her own enduring connection to it. With Lumina awake, her journey was complete. But she was not the same girl who had set out on that long, extraordinary adventure. She carried within her the echoes of the Whispering Springs, the wisdom of the sunken city, the resilience of the shimmering peaks, and the profound joy of awakening a sleeping heart. The world would remember its magic now. The vibrant colors would return, the music would flow, and dreams would once again take flight, fueled by the reawakened light of Lumina. She descended the shimmering peaks, no longer with the urgency of a quest, but with the quiet grace of one who had witnessed and participated in a miracle. The path home, or wherever her heart might lead her next, was open and bright. The world, now bathed in the glorious, reawakened light of Lumina, the sleeping star, was a place of endless wonder, a canvas painted anew, ready for countless more stories to unfold. And in her heart, she carried the brightest star of all, the profound, hopeful promise that had now been beautifully, magnificently fulfilled. She knew with a quiet certainty that as long as there was wonder in the world, Lumina would continue to shine. And as long as Lumina shone, magic would always be found, just waiting for someone to remember.